You're tuning in to the Raised by Rentals program. This podcast will contain strong language and spoilers for decades-old media properties.
Join us.
Welcome, everybody. This is the podcast where we examine pop culture franchises of the VHS era and improv news stories intended for mature audiences only. Listener discretion is advised. While we imagine how we might improve our favorite movies, TV, and games, I'm Josh.
I'm Mike.
And we were raised by rentals. Mike! Haha, you fool! You fell victim to one of the classic blunders. The most famous is never get involved in a land war on the Forest Moon of Endor, but only slightly less well known is this. Never go in against an Ewok when death is on the line!
I was not expecting that. Holy crap.
My family isn't here, so I can get loud.
That's awesome.
Oh, Mike, welcome
Yes.
to episode 92. Yes, episode 92 of Raised by Rentals. So, Mike, this is your idea. You queued up. What are we doing for our first horror episode of season 4?
Well, thanks, Josh. I'm glad you asked. We had discussed this jokingly for a while. We wanted to do something involving Star Wars. But again, Star Wars is such a big franchise. It's such a big thing. It's like, how do you do something that makes sense in that world that hasn't already been done? So, to be fair, just completely transparent, I don't know if this has already been done, but I think the idea is really fun. So, one of the things as a child that I loved about Star Wars, because I was born in 1980, so of course Jedi was the one that I watched over and over and over again. I loved Ewoks. Many children of the 80s loved Ewoks. They were toys of them, stuffed animals of them. We had the two really bad Ewok made for TV movies. We had the Ewok cartoon. Ewoks were awesome. Now, I remember watching Return of the Jedi with my brother. This is before I moved from 22nd Street, so it had to be before I was 11. But I was at that point I was watching horror movies, so definitely after 5 years old. So between the ages of 5 and 11, somewhere in there, I was watching Return of the Jedi with my brother, and he commented on how the Ewoks were gonna eat Han and Luke, and I was like, "What?" And he's like, "Yeah, they were gonna cook them. If it wasn't for 3PO, they were gonna cook them." And I'm like, oh my God, they eat people. And from that point forward, it was always in my head that Ewoks are savage little bastards. And of course, there's the question at the end of Return of the Jedi where they're playing the bongos on the helmets. It's like, are those the helmets of their fallen victims? Like, did they eat those guys? Like, what's going on? So I've had this long running joke in my art, with fellow Star Wars fans like Hibbard about how, the Ewoks they're flesh eaters. They're little freaking monsters that eat people. And I was like, how horrifying would it be for the remnant of Imperials left behind after the battle on Endor? Because the freaking Death Star blows up. There's no one coming to help them. Did the rebels mop up the remaining Imperials? Did they take them into custody, or did they let the Ewoks do it? And then it's like I started thinking more and more about that. I'm like, how terrifying would it be for those troops left behind? So I wanted to tell a story from the Imperials' point of view. So yes, we are telling it from the bad guys' point of view. So keep that in mind. But we're doing the much maligned. Our main characters are the villains. A lot of people have trouble with that type of story. I talk about this on the Boogeyman's Closet all the time. Like we're going to be covering 3 from Hell pretty soon. And one of the biggest criticisms I heard of that movie is people were mad that the Firefly family did these awful things. And I'm like, they're the bad guys. Like,
right? Yeah.
Yes, I get it that they're the main characters, but they're still the bad guys. Like, come on. So that's kind of the story I want to tell, is what happens to the Imperials left behind after the rebels win the second battle for the Death Star.
Awesome. I think that's a great idea. Yeah, and I love stories about the bad guys. I think everybody loves stories about the bad guys sometimes.
Hmm.
I think that was a lot of the excitement for the Star Wars prequels in the first place, because a lot of the marketing was around the fact that, oh, we're going to tell the story of Darth Vader as a kid, like how Darth Vader became Darth Vader. And,
Hmm.
we shouldn't have to remind anybody that Darth Vader is the fucking bad guy.
Right.
He gets redeemed at the end of Return of the Jedi, but he spends two movies and about 90% of a third one like being a total fucking douchebag. Like Darth Vader is the bad guy. So
Right.
but everyone wanted to see that story anyway. Like you want to see stories about the bad guys. I've said multiple times before how, I like the Holy Crusade type movies. And these are movies about anti-heroes, like
Hmm.
heroes who just snap and, go on like a murder spree, but they're the good guy killing the bad guys, but they're still people murdering people,
Exactly.
I got sucked into watching Reacher recently, the TV show Reacher.
Oh, okay.
And I don't watch a lot of TV, so I'm really pretty picky about what I watch. But I'll check out the first episode of something if I hear enough good reviews. And I heard so many good reviews. And I read one of the Reacher books like years ago, and it was this perfect like airplane book, right? Where it's a page turner. It's like those Dan Brown like Da Vinci Code books, like they're kind of dumb, but like he really gets you with the tension, so you're turning the pages quick. And
Oh, yeah.
so I checked out the first episode, and then before you knew it, I had like shotgunned like all three seasons of Reacher. But it's exactly the kind of TV show that I like, because the episodes get to the fucking point. They don't waste a lot of time on like bullshit, like maudlin sad moments where we reflect on our feelings. Like the flashbacks are quick. There's lots of action, but at the end of the day, like Reacher is supposedly the good guy, but he has absolutely no compunction whatsoever about murdering every single person that even slightly inconveniences him.
Well, like Arnie in every action movie in the 80s. Like, think Commando. He was just killing fools.
Right, exactly. Oh man. So yeah, people want to see shows about the bad guys, and it's especially interesting when you can tell a story about people who were supposed to be the bad guys, but then you make people really feel for them, right?
Yeah.
When you can really empathize with that character. Game of Thrones or A Song of Ice and Fire, the book series, is notorious for that. There are so many characters in that story who are just reprehensible assholes, just unforgivable, irredeemable, but you forgive him and you redeem him anyway, because
Hmm.
when you tell a good story and you put people in the right situations where they have to make a tough call, and sometimes when a character has to make a tough call, the good guy does something that people might think that's the wrong choice. Like you have to like break your code of ethics. Well, sometimes the bad guys decide that hey, maybe today I'm gonna have a heart of gold. Maybe I don't have to kill kids this one time.
See, now I think my favorite example of that, and once again using going back to Rob Zombie, is the Devil's Rejects. Because with the Devil's Rejects, it's like we see for a good, what, more than half of the movie, just how fucking awful the Firefly family is and what they're willing to do to innocent people.
Yep.
And the whole time you got Sheriff Wydell hunting him down, and he starts off as the good guy, but he starts to get more and more vicious as the movie goes along, until finally he's doing the exact same thing to them that they did to other people. And this is after you got to see them having kind of a family moment. So it's like you're conflicted, because it's like, yeah, they're the bad guys, but now you're seeing them get tortured and you're like, I kind of don't want anyone to get tortured. And then like you're wrestling with that empathy feeling of just like, yeah, you want to see them get taken down for what they did. Like they need their comeuppance, but not like this,
Yeah.
And I love when a storyteller can make you do that, especially when like you just spent half the movie going, fuck them. Like they're awful,
Yeah.
and then you're just like, oh shit, I don't want to see them get taken out that way. I think that's great.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think hopefully if we do it the right way, that is what we can pull off today. At least, I think that's the aspiration.
Yeah. That's the lofty goal we're setting for ourselves.
Right. So I don't think we need to do any like facts and figures on this. I mean, who listening to this possibly could not have seen Star Wars, and specifically Return of the Jedi. I mean,
Right?
is that realistic at all to think that maybe there's somebody who hasn't seen Return of
I
the
mean,
Jedi?
I have like one or two friends at work that I know kind of cherry pick the podcast. So hello if you're listening. Um, but I know one in particular hasn't watched the Star Wars movies just because their parents never introduced them to it, and they weren't, sci-fi kids. So yeah, I mean, it's possible, but I think most people, at least through pop culture, understand what the fuck the Ewoks are.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
know enough about Star Wars that we don't need to go into a big explanation.
Yeah. Okay, so just the briefest of brief for that small sliver of an audience who maybe doesn't know. And, I've actually gotten kind of into watching people on TikTok who've never seen Star Wars, like young people, like watch it for the first time and kind of like, live stream their reactions. And that's pretty funny.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, I mean, what we're talking about here, the Ewoks and any story around them, would be a spin-off of Return of the Jedi, which Star Wars Episode 6, 1983. It's the third of the original trilogy, which is now the middle trilogy of the 9 saga movies. But when we were kids, it was the third movie, and it stars, the characters that you've heard of before. There's Mark Hamill as Luke Skywalker. There's Carrie Fisher as Princess Leia. There's Harrison Ford as Han Solo. A bunch of, other characters that you've probably heard of before we won't get into. Notably, there is one of the Ewoks, the teddy bear-looking natives of the Forest Moon of Endor, an actor by the name of Warwick Davis, who was only about 12 or 13, depending on when they filmed the movie exactly, which I think is pretty cool. I knew that he was young, but I don't think I realized he was that young. And he plays Wicket, who is one of the main Ewok characters that we meet. He's the one that introduces us to the rest of the Ewoks. But yeah, they look like cute little teddy bears. And they wear like little leather hats, and they kind of look like characters that are like Winnie the Pooh, but these are but they're natives who eat what is available to them. They're carnivores or omnivores, and there's a scene in the movie before we really see all the Ewoks proper where our main characters, and including Chewbacca, the big Wookiee, they're all captured in a hunter's net put out by the Ewoks because Chewie couldn't resist the fresh kill that was laid out as bait for the trap. So, I mean, right from the get-go, we're introduced to the Ewoks as hunters.
Mm-hmm. And they fight with, spears and bow and arrow and slings and all sorts of just like the types of weapons you could make out of what the forest provides, sticks, stones, bone, etc.
Yeah. And I'll just make one comment about Return of the Jedi, which is, when I was a kid, being born in 1980, like that very, very tail end of Gen X and, maybe older millennial, even though I don't claim that.
Same.
But like we were little kids, so we were the perfect age for the Ewoks, 3-4 years old. This is a movie that I remember seeing on a television set. I don't know if it would have been like a broadcast on like one of the standard channels as like a special airing, or if it was a VHS. It definitely would have been pretty early for my family to have had a VCR, so I feel like it was probably like a network channel special broadcast with commercial breaks. But but it was the perfect age for the Ewoks because they look like teddy bears. But they're they fight and they help the heroes like win against the the bad guys of the evil empire. And as I got older, that seemed to be the common opinion amongst most people that I knew, that Return of the Jedi is like the best one. I mean, like, there's the first one, but like everyone likes the first one, but like of the other two, and everyone loves Return of the Jedi. To me, it was my favorite one out of all three, and it probably still is out of the original trilogy. But and then even in a movie like Clerks, Kevin Smith's Clerks that came out in the mid '90s, there's a scene where and I don't know the quote word for word, but Randall asks Dante, the titular Clerks, Randall asks Dante, like which he likes better, Empire or Jedi. And Dante replies, Empire, and Randall's knee-jerk reaction is to say blasphemy. As if,
Mhm.
well, of course Return of the Jedi is better. And then they have a conversation where they compare and contrast the two. And I feel like Dante's opinion that Empire has like the better ending, like it's, like life is just a series of down endings, and that's what Empire was. I feel like at some point over the years, that has become the prevailing opinion. And now whenever I have this conversation with people about the original trilogy, it always seems like, well, of course, Empire is the best. Like Jedi had those silly little, teddy bear puppets in it. And I'm like, well, when did that change? I thought everyone
Right.
loved the Ewoks. Like, people don't like Ewoks? Like, what? Where did
Well,
that come from?
not only that, but I used to get pissed because I'm like, okay, but everybody loves Yoda. So we're cool with one little diminutive puppet monster, but we can't have others. Like, what the hell? Like,
Yeah.
I love Yoda and I love the fucking Ewoks.
I know, right? Yoda never like took down Imperial walkers with like
Right.
primitive weapons. Like, come on, the Ewoks were pretty badass,
Exactly. They fucking took out the freaking ATSTs left and right. Like they were pretty efficient at it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and of course, they play it for fun in the movie, obviously, like we said. But we're going to go the other way. So I think what we need to do here is just sort of establish like where do we start, like where do we kick off, and again, without doing all the facts and figures and repeating everything that happens in Return of the Jedi. The point is that Return of the Jedi, the majority of the movie is what is most people refer to as like the Battle of Endor or the Battle of the Second Death Star, or Death Star 2. I was waiting for it. And it was a battle that was taking place both as a ground war on the Forest Moon of Endor and up in space with the Imperial forces attacking the Death Star. It's a trap. That if you've ever heard that's from this movie.
Exactly.
And then, spoiler alert, the rebels, the good guys in Star Wars, they win. They win the ground war with the help of the Ewoks. They win the space battle, and they blow up the Death Star, as they say in Clerks, like, evil's punished. But to your point, it's like, well, then what happened? Like, what happened right after that? Like, just because you blew up the Death Star with, probably millions, if not billions of Imperial people in it, but the Empire was galactic. It was everywhere in, the known galaxy, including the people on the Forest Moon of Endor. And I don't remember any scene where, Leia's rebels just lined up all of the Imperial troops and summarily executed them with headshots. So there's gonna be some around.
Exactly. And like, okay, and we know, and again, we know, guys, that later on and in more in Star Wars canon, like in Force Awakens and in other films and television shows, they've talked about how they're the last remnant before they became the First Order. There's the big battle on Jakku, which is why there's the downed Star Destroyer on Jakku and Force Awakens. We get all that. But this is in the 80s. So we're saying in this alternate universe that we're telling this Elseworld story in, it's kind of in the mindset where Star Wars was in the 80s, which is Lucas told his 3 movies. And then he was like, yeah, you guys want to make Ewok fucking made for TV movies? Have at. Just don't include the main characters, and basically like he let so many people play in the Star Wars sandbox early on. I mean, there is a movie out there called Making Contact, also called Joey, about a telekinetic like kid. And there's like an evil ventriloquist dummy. It's ridiculous. But fucking Darth Vader shows up in the movie. So like Lucas was a little more like open with his licensing back then. So we're pretending that in this world that this movie takes place, that basically you could just make a Star Wars movie. As long as you weren't using the main characters, they're like, yeah, go ahead and make a Star Wars movie. So we're going to get violent. We're going to get ugly. This isn't very much not like our Harry and the Hendersons Part 2, where we tried to stay in the same vein of Harry and the Hendersons. This is going to be a war movie that takes place in Star Wars. So
yes,
expect Platoon or like, Apocalypse Now, like expect violence. We understand that that's not in the spirit of the Disney Star Wars and the original Lucas Star Wars. We get that, but this is kind of like, picture it like the expanded universe, the novels, the comic books, where they get away with some weird shit. They have zombie stormtroopers, for Christ's sake. So, like,
Well, I always figure like they published books or in comics with a clone of Luke Skywalker named Luke with 2 L's. So
oh my
we can
God, I
do some
forgot
shit.
about that.
We can do some shit.
Exactly. So yeah, so we're gonna have some fun with this. But yeah, so where I'm thinking, we would start this whole shebang is kind of adjacent to the ending scenes of Jedi. And also keep in mind, this is the 80s Jedi. This is before we got the special edition where they go around the galaxy and show like Coruscant and all the other planets. Like they show, what is it? The Wookiee home planet, was it Kashyyyk or whatever?
Kashyyyk or
Kashyyyk, that's it. So we see like the different planets. We see Naboo and all that, where they're all, yay, the Empire's down, yay. Like before that, this was literally just the celebration on Endor. We have no idea what's happening with the rest of the galaxy and in this world.
Yep, exactly. And I have to insist that we have to start off with some action, and we complained about it in our last couple episodes, and it came up specifically on our Young, Dumb, and Full of Opinions rental rant we did 2 episodes ago, where it's like, it's like the first page of a comic book story, where it's like if I open the first page of a comic, like I need you to suck me in with something interesting, like don't make me do the work to get to the story. So I think we should just jump right in with like it's either during the Battle of Endor or it's just after, or kind of establish the timeline. But I wanted to just be like, let's get thrown into the action. I think we need to come out of the gate swinging.
Absolutely. So okay, so we know we're going to be dealing with Imperials. So let's just jump right in. We'll figure out names and stuff in a minute. So what I think the best way to open this would be, like you said, battle happening. So just we do our text crawl. I don't know what it is. We didn't talk about that ahead of time, so we don't have a text crawl. But pretend there was this text crawl explaining the Imperials' plight as they battle on the Forest Moon of Endor. So we cut in, and I just want to see like stormtroopers in the fucking brush shooting at rebels shooting them, just guys getting taken down. You see stormtroopers falling into the brush, screaming, Ewoks fucking throwing spears, just chaos, immediate chaos. Just the Imperials are badly losing, and they're being pushed back, like they're trying to retreat and stay alive. That's kind of how I'm picturing that opening.
Yep. Yeah, and then it's going to be a lot of like radio chatter, a lot of like, I don't know, the characters that we're about to meet are going to be getting on the radio. Maybe we see, I don't know, maybe they're stormtroopers or whatever, maybe speeder bike troopers, whatever you call those guys wearing the white helmets, and we're going to hear them on the radio like, Sarge, come in, like, we're pinned down, like we're under fire, like, or something, or
we should hear someone say something about the shield generator is down.
Oh yeah, that's okay. So you know what? Let me back up and correct what I just said. Yeah, I think that's exactly right. Where let's just open up like like in the jungle of the Forest Moon of Endor, and we see this group, and and it's like, and they're rushing. I don't know if they're in vehicles or on foot, but we'll figure it out. And they're rushing, and that's what we're hearing on the camera. And it's like someone's in like Mayday, like all troops to the shield generator, like like we're under attack. The generator's been overrun. It's a rescue mission, like retreat, we need evac, or whatever. It's like people calling for help. And so now you have this group of people who had been out in the forest somewhere on patrol or at an outpost, and they're like rushing to get back to like help the other Imperials, and something's going to stop them, obviously, right? Like they're never going to make it back, because we don't want to see Mark Hamill and and Carrie Fisher. We don't want to see any of the main characters. We never want to get anywhere near where the Return of the Jedi movie happened, because this is sort of like happening on the side.
Okay, follow me here for a minute. This is I got a whole scene in my head playing out. So I don't know what the characters' names are going to be. We'll work that out in a second. But have a couple of stormtroopers. They're fighting back. They're unlike most troopers, they're actually hitting some of their targets. So you see them taking out rebels, taking out Ewoks. We hear this over their comms. About the shield generator. They start rushing through. Trying to get there. Maybe while they're rushing that way, like we see the rebels are all around the shield generator. They're fighting back. They can't get through the defenses. We see an ATST come walking up. So it comes stomping up behind them. They're like, yeah, finally, we're one for us type of thing. So the ATST is like fucking gunning down rebels, gunning down Ewoks. And then suddenly, like, you see the rolling log landslide come by and take out the legs of the fucking chicken
Nice.
walker. And
Nice.
it topples, goes down. But unlike the stuff we see in Jedi, where it's very cartoonish violence, it crashes down. Let's see in the interior of the cockpit. We're going to have like an officer and an ATST pilot. It crashes and it starts on fire. Like, it's burning. So they're in there. They're trapped inside. They're trying to get their belts undone. They're screaming as the cockpit is burning, and then have the hatch get popped open, have like a biker scout trooper, like, get out of there, like yanking him out. The one guy, maybe his leg is on fire. He's like, fuck, like trying to put it out. There's gunfire everywhere. While this chaotic moment is happening, the fucking sky ignites red. And they look up, the fucking Death Star blew up.
Oh, nice. Yes.
So they were trying to get back to the shield generator, because remember, the shield generators are down. Now the rebels can attack Death Star. So it's like, oh, fuck. Like, everyone's gone. Just like, and one thing I don't think we really think about, I mean, I know Clerks kind of brought it to the forefront of pop culture, but it's like, it's a giant battle station, but they live there. Like, people live there. Like, it's a military base. If you look at a military base, often on military bases, the soldiers' families have homes or apartments or something there on these military bases. So you would have cleaning staff, you would have, cook staff. There was a lot of people who just worked for the Empire or were married into people who worked for the Empire that would be on the Death Star. So So from their point of view, the rebels just killed their friends and family as well as their bosses and comrades, So it's like, they're going to be heartbroken. Like, that's awful.
Yeah, and we should show that too. Like when the sky goes from like daylight to supernova red and blinding, and when that flash clears and they see they see this explosion in the sky, they realize what happened. We should see them like all have a different reaction, this group, and we probably should stop and put some names and personalities so we can kind of understand. But I'm just picturing like one person who's just gonna fall to their knees and just start like crying and screaming at the sky, and there's going to be one person who's just going to be like, I try to think of like a Star Wars like woman's name, like he's going to be saying his wife's name, like Jenny, oh no, Jenny, and like kind of like start to panic, and then you're going to have somebody else who's just going to, be wide-eyed and staring and frozen. You're going to have somebody else who's trying to like, come on, we can't stop and deal with this now. Like, he's pushing it down, so they're all going to kind of react in the same way. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Like, it always reminds me of the scene from, and we might use this later on, but there's a scene in Platoon pretty early on in the movie where one of the troops, and of course it's one of the guys who's like, showing off a picture of his girlfriend, and I can't wait to get back home to like Sally Joe, and then he gets fucking shot by some Viet Cong fire, and then you have Tom Berenger come up and his face is all scarred up, and he's just like, he covers the screaming soldier's mouth and it's just like, take the pain.
Yes, I remember that.
That shit stuck in my head forever.
Oh, dude, those war movies were no joke in the 80s. Seeing them as a kid, holy shit. Like, Platoon fucked me up when I saw it.
Oh, hell yeah, dude. That was brutal. It was brutal. But yeah, and that's what I'm thinking is like, we should instantly start getting some empathy and a little bit of insight into where our characters are. The characters that we've just seen on screen for maybe a couple of minutes, in the middle of like a battle. And, now we're going to see these emotions, and now they're going to be sort of scattered, and wherever they were going, maybe back to the shield generator to help with the evac or with the futile battle against the rebels or whatever it is. But now they're shook, so they may stop, and again, it'll give us a second to meet them. You may have one character who's just like get up, fill-in name here. Get up, so we can, we got to say the names out loud, and then, we kind of give them a minute, but with what's also happening while we're giving them a minute is they're not moving. Like they're stopped in the middle of the forest where, we know that the Ewoks have joined the forces of the rebels to wipe the Imperials from their home planet, and maybe stopping in the middle of the woods isn't such a good idea.
Exactly. You got, and I think during that scene we could still have like laser blasts, like in the like we could see other Imperials getting shot and stuff like that, but just we're closing in on this small pocket of troops where it's like the scout that pulled the officer and the pilot out of the burning ATST, and like maybe a couple of troopers, and we could have that moment where like, one of the troopers falls to his knees and is like, saying the name of his wife, and like, one of the other ones could be like, on your feet, soldier, and like pull him back up, and that whole thing. So okay, let's name these guys. I feel like we need like a group of 6 or 7 people just for body count because people are gonna die.
And you mentioned that there was the ATST, like the chicken walker, right? So was everybody else here just like ground troops?
Yeah, I would say like we would have like a platoon of stormtroopers like pressing forward toward the shield generator, just like firing like an uphill kind of thing. Like they're firing, trying to get in there. And then you have the chicken walker come up from behind to back them up. And it's just like fucking like shooting over their heads, like mowing down troops. And then the Ewoks attack from the side and take out the chicken walker. And during that chaos, we could have some speeder bike, like some biker scouts come swooping up on their bikes to try to help. So it's like, because remember on Endor, there were the only vehicles we really saw, if I'm remembering correctly, it's been a while since I watched Jedi, but I know we saw the scouts, the biker scouts on the speeders, and we saw ATSTs walking around. But I don't think we ever saw any other kind of ground vehicle. So
No,
I think
I don't think so.
Yeah, it would just make sense to have like a platoon of troopers, marching toward the shield generator. Like maybe they were nearby and they were rushing for help.
Yeah, so a little squad. Okay, so we could have somebody from the ATST. We can have maybe 1 or 2 of the biker scouts who stop, and then, I don't know, 4 or 5 of these stormtroopers from this squad. And that'll give us like our 6 or 7 or maybe 8 people.
Right.
And of course I can't help but think like, well, they're all wearing fucking helmets. Like, how are we going to emote these characters? But I think it would be interesting if during this sequence where they see the Death Star explode, like some of them are, of course, are going to take their helmets off, because they want to see it like with their own eyes.
Exactly.
But I think it would be an interesting, like emotional, like sort of tick if like as the characters sort of like drop their like tough guy front and become human, like they take their helmet off, and so like the one guy who's like on your feet, soldier, like it's going to take him a while to take his helmet off,
Right. Yeah, and I think like so because with the officer and the ATST pilot, like both of them are they would have the helmet, but not the face covering. Like, because I remember in the cockpit we always saw them, so they would have their faces open, and the biker scouts, they can flip, at least if I'm remembering correctly, I believe the front of that flips up, so we would be able to have like one of the biker scouts like flip his mask up and look. And just be like, holy fuck. So we could definitely have moments where we see their faces. But yeah, the stormtroopers would absolutely have to pop their helmet off. So why don't we have, okay, so let's go ATST pilot. What do you want to name him? First thing came to mind, Chance.
Yeah, okay, that works.
Last name Chance. So, and we're going to be using last names.
Yeah. Because in Star Wars is interesting for having like a lot of like kind of normal like American English names mixed in with like some weird stuff like Qui-Gon every once in a while.
Right. Yeah, because you have like Kenobi and Skywalker and Palpatine and all that. But, and Darklighter and Antilles.
Yeah, but you get things like Biggs, like just sort of normal names. There's a guy named Porkins for some reason.
Because he's fat.
Yeah. Okay, so let's call a guy Chance. Let's call a guy, I don't know, or a girl. Let's have one of the biker scouts be a woman. And I don't know what we're going to call her. I'm just going to make up a name. She's going to be Waller, like the Suicide Squad. Waller.
Okay. Waller. Okay. All right. Let's another scout. We'll have a dude. Let's call him Jansen.
Jansen. All right, Jansen. All right. Let's have somebody named. There's always like joke names in Star Wars too. Like they hide like the names of actors. Well, hell, even I mentioned Warwick Davis, the actor who plays Wicket. Well, it's never revealed in the movie, but like in official Star Wars canon, Wicket's last name is Warwick because he's played by Warwick Davis. So it's spelled a little different, but like that's kind of fun.
Right.
So maybe so the guy who wrote this movie, his name is Lawrence Kasdan. So let's have a guy called Kasdan.
Why don't we have the officer named Kasdan?
Officer's Kasdan. I like that. Okay, so the officer is Kasdan. All right.
Okay, I like that.
You're up.
All right. I kind of want one of the troopers to have, more of a human, like, normal name, I should say, earthly name. So what about something like Santeras? Like something that sounds something like Hispanic kind of sounding.
Yeah, I like that.
Let's get at least like 2 more troopers, like stormtroopers.
Yeah, mentioning Biggs earlier makes me always think of like Riggs and Murtaugh from like Lethal Weapon.
I mean, like not Murdoch, because that's A-Team. I'm trying to think something because I kind of like the M sound.
Oh yeah, Murtaugh Tomer or let's call him Murto. Does Murto sound stupid? I don't know.
What about like Merrick?
Merrick. Okay, yeah, we'll just change. Oh, like Elephant Man Merrick. Yeah, just change it up.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, Merrick, and then we need at least 1 more stormtrooper.
Well, what about just Riggs? Since we're going with like Riggs and Murtaugh.
Yeah, sounds good to me. Okay, we'll call him Riggs. All right, so we got Kasdan, Chance, Waller, Jansen, Santeras, Merrick, and Riggs.
Yep, that works for me. Okay, so what is
cool.
that? 7 people.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, 7. Okay, so anyway, so we would have 2. We'd have 2 speeder bikes because we have the 2 biker scouts, and remember they usually do travel in pairs, so that makes sense. So we have the 2. We have the biker scout and the ATST pilot and the officer who were in the chicken walker and got pulled out by the biker scout, and then we have the last 3 remaining stormtroopers of that platoon that were going toward the generator. So all of these guys are now going to have to retreat. So after we see the Death Star explode and we have that quiet moment where they're just like their entire world has just been thrown into upheaval, we're going to have like the one trooper. Do you want to have it to be Riggs, who was like get up soldier, that guy, or do you want it to be somebody else?
Yeah, I think Riggs. For some reason, Riggs, and he's the guy who's going to keep his helmet on because he's trying to stay tough, right?
Yeah.
And I'm thinking I don't want to like stereotype, like the one female Waller, but maybe she's the one who is sort of like whispering at the sky, like Janie, oh no, Janie, and that could be a daughter, it could be a wife, we don't know what it is. Like she's just kind of like she's in shock, and then one of them is going to be down on their knees, just losing it, like screaming at the sky. I'm not sure which one it is.
She should be the one that yanks oh dude, okay, hold on. Just follow me for a second. A lot of people in the Star Wars universe, especially after the Clone Wars, they have cybernetic enhancements or cybernetic replacements because they outlawed cloning in most of the known galaxies. Obviously Palpatine was still fucking around with it, but that's beside the point. At this point, there's no clones. So what if she has like a cybernetic arm? Like she's seen some shit, right? Like she's been in the battles. So I mean, she's still wearing her uniform, but we could touch on this later. But I like the idea of her being the one that rips the cockpit hatch open. Like maybe it's stuck when they like crash and it's on fire. She yanks that thing open. She's like, "Get out!" and is like pulling them out. And we find out later it's because she has a cybernetic arm that she was able to like rip that off its fucking hinges.
Oh, nice. Yeah, for sure. That'd be awesome.
Just a little character moment. Like we can play with that.
Yeah, no, that'd be perfect. I love that. What if it's like on fire and she like reaches over and like her hand catches on fire and she just like, shakes it off and then she has this like burned black hand that like, no one else like thinks anything of it. It would just be a cool visual until we eventually realize that like, when the burned skin comes off, there's like metal fingers underneath, but it would just like, look cool for a while.
I like that.
Okay, so I was thinking right off the bat, like we need to introduce the threat of the Ewoks. We had this cool action scene. The Death Star blew up. Like we need to kill somebody like right now. Somebody has to go so we can kind of set the stage.
I perfect idea. I guess so. Okay. So we get everybody back together. They get their shit together. They hop on the bikes and take off. Now, of course, some of them are still going to be on foot because you can only carry so many people on those speeders. So maybe you have like the stormtroopers pulling up the rear. The biker scouts go off ahead with looking at the names here with Chance and Kasdan. Like they take off with them. Troopers are like gunning guys down, running. We get to like a staging point where they know that where the Imperials were landing some of their troops. So we get to there, we see one of the Tidariums, the Imperial shuttles. We see another officer like waving like, "Get on, come on, get out of here." So everyone's trying to run, like they're trying to flee because they just fucking lost. So we have picture like an officer waving them over as stormtroopers are loading into the shuttle, and then just have a fucking boulder come from like off screen and smear the dude. Just fucking nice. Cartoonish red smear across the dirt, and just have like Ewoks like cheering, cheering, and we see them loading more catapults and fucking raining rocks down on these guys.
Nice.
So they're going to be shooting Ewoks and trying to get away. And the ship is going to start to take off without them because it's like they're under fire. So they're going to be screaming, "Wait," as the stormtroopers are pulling up the rear, like running up, like, holy shit, like they're leaving without us. We see the ship flying up in the sky and just have two Y-wings fucking strafe it and take it out. So it fucking explodes. So now their few buddies that they just saw, like they just saw one get killed by an Ewok, and safety was right there, fucking explodes, and it's literally raining blood and fire because it would be like nice. Chunks of flaming wreckage from the ship and blood from their exploded comrades just raining down. So now they have to scatter because the Ewoks are closing in on them. The rebels are coming up from the rear. Their only escape got blown up in the fucking sky. So they're fucked 6 ways from Sunday here.
Yes, I kind of feel like we shouldn't see the Ewoks yet, like the things that they do, but I kind of feel like if we're building up this to be like a horror movie, like you don't want to see the monster yet, you know what I mean?
True.
Like
maybe you just hear like the cheering off, like you hear
yeah, exactly, and you hear like spears rattling, and like our characters are going to be doing a whole lot of like looking around in every direction, like what's that, like
you see
they
the
don't know
bushes
where the Ewoks
moving
are.
all around them.
Yeah. Well, you don't know where the Ewoks are, and you see that in Return of the Jedi, where, I mean, that scene I mentioned earlier about the Chewie and the rest of our heroes getting caught up in the hunter's net. Like when R2-D2 gets them out of the net and they all fall to the ground and stand up, the Ewoks just like they like meld out of the greenery all around them. They just appear. They were all there, and a lot of them. And it's like nobody saw them until they took a step forward, and it's like, whoa, their camouflage was like so good that they were like feet away, and no one was detected.
Yep. And that would absolutely be, how they would be so terrifying is they're stealthy as fuck, So
yeah. So yeah.
Okay.
And let me just say something, because I don't want to like derail your scene, but like I'm feeling like we need to have think of Predator, right? You had the same type of group of like a bunch of soldiers kind of dropped into a jungle that's going to turn into a bloodbath, and I like this. I like the idea of like a Hawkins, who is the first character in Predator Arnie's group to get taken out, where it's like somebody attacks him from off screen and then he gets dragged away, and we see like the blood trail that the rest of the characters follow to kind of figure out, and they're like, where's his body? And that's kind of the type of sequence that I would love to see here, is like, let's have sorry, my dogs are growling again. Let's have the chaos kind of like calm down a little bit, and the characters are trying to catch their breath, and then they look around and they're like, hey, where's Merrick or whoever. It's like, or maybe we can make up a new character that is just invented to die. They look around and they're like, where's Hawklighter, and whatever, and we can kind of have this scene where everything gets real quiet and they're like following the blood.
I got it. Okay, so we have the big explosion. We have that they have these guys, like, again, remember, Kasdan is an officer, so he's going to be shouting orders. So like have him just be like, retreat, get out of here. Like, so they start taking off into the brush, trying to like just find some safety, because like they've just run from one battle to another, everything is blowing up all around them. They finally, so we're gonna have this quiet moment. Like they run off into the forest. They hide. They're kind of like hunkering down. But like, all right, is everyone here? Kind of looking around, and Kasdan's gone.
Oh, it's Kasdan. Okay, nice.
Yeah, so keep in mind, because now there's gonna be a rank issue. Like they're gonna be like, who's in charge, that type of thing. So
I like it.
Kasdan's missing, and they're like, the fuck, what happened to Kasdan? So they're gonna be looking at, maybe we see like blood like dripping off the nearby plants, so they start following it and they're looking, and all they find is like the trail of blood, and maybe there's like drags in the dirt where it almost looked like he was like grabbing at the dirt, like trying to claw his way free of whatever it was that had him. And that
nice.
Maybe we don't find out what happens to Kasdan for quite some time.
Yeah, no, we shouldn't. It should just be like, they're just like, where's Kasdan? Like, where'd he go? Like, and then maybe one of the other characters, maybe it's Waller, who just, stands up out of from reaching down to grab something out of like the brush, and there's like his bloody officer's helmet, and then of course we got to do the line. They're like, where's his body?
Yeah, exactly. Dude, that's fucking perfect. So yeah, like they're seeing all this blood, maybe there's like a pool of blood, and they see his fucking little helmet, and like have Waller pick it up and just be like, where the hell is his body? Like, what happened? Like kind of that like something's hunting us kind of fear. So we have that moment, like have them keep moving. Like they're just, at this point, they're terrified. They keep fucking moving. So I don't know. I want to get to nightfall. So like let's have like a quiet moment here. So we have the big battle. We have them, they lose Kasdan. They rush off into the forest. Maybe they take refuge in like, a cave or something, like find some kind of like little rock formation where there's like a bit of an overhang and they can kind of hide out. So I'm trying to like regroup, and we see night is falling. Maybe we can hear the cheers in the distance of the rebels. We see the fucking fireworks overhead, and they're just like hunkered down, like no fire, no nothing, just quietly, covered in blood and blaster marks, just hiding in this little cavern. Like, what do we do? How do we get out of here? Trying to figure out a game plan.
Yeah, that's perfect. Yeah, I like that. I like the idea of the sort of juxtaposition of our bloodied, exhausted group, and they're all sort of like arguing and feeling their emotions in different ways too. And this is be our opportunity to get to know them a little bit better. But the contradiction of they're miserable while all around them there's fireworks and partying and they can hear the singing, but to them it's like it's frightening. To them they're just like,
sure.
Oh no, like we're alone, we're behind enemy lines, dog.
Exactly. I mean, because again, how terrifying would that be? Like you're alone with no backup, limited supplies, enemies all around you, and they're excited. They're happy. Like they're happy that all of your people have been killed. Like that would be terrifying.
Yeah, exactly. And of course they're all gonna be like, what are we gonna do? And then somebody's gonna be like, I forget, again, I'm not sure who it was, but somebody, the guy who was just broken down and weeping on the ground, and he's just going to be like, what am I going to do? Like, little Tommy, little Sally, whatever.
Right.
And then, they're all, but this will be I don't want to go through all the dialogue, but this is going to be our opportunity for the audience to get to know the characters, because of course we want to care about them, right? That was the whole point. So we want to empathize with them. We see that they're scared, they're sad, they're miserable, they don't know what's out there, and then maybe they come to a point where they're just kind of like, we're stuck here unless we can find a way to get to one of the shuttles. There's got to be shuttles that are left at the shield generator. Like if we can get there and we can sneak through the rebel lines, we can get out of here. And then they hear all like the fireworks and the cheering, and that's just gonna like put a pall over them, like just dead silence where they're all staring at each other thinking like, fuck, can we do this? And
yeah.
and then maybe they hear like a stick that breaks outside, or they hear something rustling in the bushes, and they're just like, oh my god, like what's that? What's out there? And then we can have a little fun in the dark.
Okay. All right. Oh, you just gave me some ideas. Okay. So we have the group sitting around, discussing, like, let's have Merrick be kind of like breaking down, like rocking back and forth, thinking about like his family and all that. Riggs is trying to be like, you got to pull it together, man. Like, you know, worry later, or like
Hmm.
grieve later, fight now, that type of thing. He's just like, he's trying to keep it together. We could have Waller. Maybe she's sitting there like fixing her fucking cybernetic arm. So like we see like she's got her fucking burnt glove is now taken off, and we see like the metal fingers, and she's like, got some kind of like little torch or something, just sitting there like fucking trying to fix it. And we see her fingers twitching, like maybe it took some kind of damage. Maybe she could have like a blaster mark on her arm, you know, and maybe she's the one that's like keeping the level head, being like, look, I know they overrun the or they overran the shield generator, but that's our best chance to get a transmission out. We need to get back to the generator. We get to the comm station. We send word that we're trapped down here. So they're like trying to figure out like how do we get there
Hmm. Hmm.
with all, and we have all the, like you said, the celebrations, and they're like looking around. We could even have like Chance sitting there, because he's not gonna have a helmet on, have him just be like, fucking rebel scum, like just kind of like getting pissed off because like they're cheering as their friends died. But to your point, we hear the like rustling in the trees, and have Merrick, who's already freaking out, be like, what is that, and have the Briggs and Santeras calming him down, like, you gotta keep it together, man, like, stay together. And Waller just be like, look, we gotta move now, it's not safe. So have them start heading toward the shield generator, like to try to get
Hmm.
to this is where we can have them first get attacked by the Ewoks.
Yeah. Okay. So do we want to have them, like, are we saying that they're going to be like, look, our chances to do it now, like under cover of darkness, like everyone
Yeah.
everyone everyone over there is partying, like this is our chance. Yeah, no, this is
Yep.
good, right? Because now they're gonna sneak out, and of course because they're trying to sneak up on the rebels in the dark, it's like no flashlights, no comms, nothing that's gonna make any noise. Like we got to be stealth mode, but not having any flashlights is gonna make things difficult and creepy as fuck while they're creeping through the woods to moonlight.
Right. So we should. It's like, I'm thinking, do we want to have them take the speeders, or do we want to have, because we would want to be quiet, so they probably wouldn't take the speeders.
No, I think that they leave the speeders behind. I think this is our chance to just get them on foot. I think their plan should just be that, fuck sleep. They need to hike through the woods and get to the shield generator while they can. Like while
Mhm.
again the rebels they can hear the rebels celebrating. They don't know who the rebels are necessarily, but they're like, this is our chance because we know the rebels overtook the shield generator. Now they're partying, so they're going to be distracted. So if we can sneak in under cover of darkness, no noise, and we'll either get a shuttle that we can just steal and get the hell out of here before they notice, or we can get in and we can send a transmission. But we have to get there and like figure out the lay of the land. This is, I think Waller's laying out this plan. I mean, she's probably just going to assume leadership. And to your point,
Mhm.
I think it would be interesting, since Kasdan the officer went down, what if Chance, who was the ATST pilot, I mean, this guy, you gotta have some position to pilot one of these like super expensive like machines. So maybe
Mhm.
Chance is himself some kind of officer, or he's been decorated. So I think Chance is going to be really he's going to get his dander up that Waller's trying to take charge. She's just a natural leader, but he's going to be like, who the fuck put you in charge? Like, Kasdan died, like I'm next in command, or whatever.
Oh yeah. Oh, you absolutely have to have that guy. Like in all these war
Yeah.
movies, there's always that guy who wants. So, but yeah, I think like maybe maybe like, okay, so maybe Waller is suggesting this plan, and have Chance be like, all right, fine, you lead it. Like, me and Jansen will stay behind with the speeders. We'll pull up the rear if you need evac.
Hmm.
So you head up the troop. So it's like he's going to purposely send Waller with the three stormtroopers, so Riggs, Santeras, and Merrick. So we have Chance and Jansen stay behind with the speeders. And then we have Waller and the three stormtroopers kind of like go out under cover of darkness and try to make their way to the shield generator.
Oh
Um,
yeah, that'd be awesome. Do we
so
want to
because
actually have Chance and Jansen, like, are they actually going to hang back, or does Chance have an ulterior motive?
Oh no, I was thinking they would actually hang back, because we could have them get attacked on two fronts. So we could have like, when Waller and the Stormtroopers encounter the Ewoks, we could have them calling for evac and no one responds.
Yeah, no, that'd be good.
Because maybe they got attacked as well.
Yeah, well, that's what I was thinking. 'Cause my initial thought, just like if Chance is the kind of guy who's going to like give Waller a hard time, is it because he's a stickler for the rules, or is it because he's like fucking full of himself? He's a hothead, and if he's going to be like, fine, Waller, you think you're so like fucking smart, like take these, the nameless troopers he doesn't care about, right? Take these fucking troopers, and he's probably never even met Santaris Riggs and Merrick before, because again, he was the chicken walker pilot, like they just came to his rescue. He doesn't care about them, So he's gonna be like, fine, you want to try, go try. He doesn't give a fuck, and he's like, I'm gonna stay behind with Jansen, and like, we'll watch the bikes. Give us a call if you need us. And then I pictured like, Waller and the troopers are gonna head off like for real. Of course, she's the one who's gonna have the plan. Like, no lights, no noise. Like, let's keep your helmets off so you can see in the dark, and let's do this. And then as soon as they're out of there, Chance is gonna be like to Jansen, be like, all right, quick, show me, give me a quick refresher. I haven't ridden one of these things like since the academy. Like, and Jansen's like, well, what do you mean? Like, we're supposed to be waiting so we can back him up, and just like, I ain't fucking waiting here for nobody. Like, there's got to be another outpost with a shuttle we can use to get out of here. Like, I'm not going anywhere near that rebel base, Right. And it's like, so they're basically like, he's gonna try, like, he's gonna leave, because what I'm picturing is that, imagine that same kind of like speeder bike chase we saw in Return of the Jedi, where they were like racing through the redwood forest at like 100 miles an hour. But imagine that in the dark with the Ewoks who are just waiting for them to like put their heads up,
Oh, okay. See, I wasn't thinking of that. What I was thinking is like, the Chance is a total pussy. He's used to being, in basically not out in the open. He's used to being in a vehicle. He's used to having the big guns, and now here he is down on the fucking ground with a pistol, and that's all like a laser pistol. That's all he has, and he doesn't want to go out, because he's like, fuck it, you go do it. I don't want to do it. I'm in charge. I'm in command. Like, I could see him being like the total pussy, but I kind of like that idea of him trying to fucking abandon them. And get, save his own skin. So
we can kind of combine them. What if Jansen is the one who's kind of the pussy, right? What if Waller is like taking the lead to say, hey guys, let's go do this, and Jansen's going to be like, well, like fuck you, like I'm in charge, And then what if Jansen's the first one to pipe up, like yeah, he's in charge, like I don't want to go, like
and like, and we'll stay behind with the bikes.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what Waller's like, no, you won't fucking, and Jansen's like, actually, yeah, he will. Like Jansen and I'll stay right here, right? Jansen's like, aye, Captain, and this is Chance taking the opportunity to be like, boom, I got one on my side now. Like this guy's mine, because he sees Waller as a competition, and he doesn't give a shit about stormtroopers. As far as he's concerned, stormtroopers are like nameless fodder. He cares about the biker scout guy, because that guy, he's had training, he's an officer. Like, so Jansen's the only one he cares about. So he's like, Waller, you want to go get yourself killed? Like, I don't give a shit. I got the only other guy around here who knows what he's doing, supposedly, and a couple of speeder bikes to get the fuck out of here, and I think it would just be a cool like dual action sequence if you have Chance who's trying to be like, let's get the fuck out of here, and Jansen's like, I don't know, boss, I don't want to go.
Yes.
Well, and then while at the same time we'll see Waller and the troops like sneaking through the woods, so it's like,
yes,
we have a lot of opportunity here for some fun.
Okay, so man, I got so many like fun little scenes popping up in my head. So we have Waller and the troopers. They start heading out toward the shield generator and trying to get to the comm station in the shield generator. So we have that happening. We see the whole scene you just described with like, Chance being like, all right, show me how to pilot one of these things. Like it's been a while, so we could have that moment, like show the viewer like, oh, that motherfucker, he's going to try to abandon them, so we go back to Waller and the troopers. They're going to be like walking, like, creeping through the woods, and we could hear shit moving around them. But every time they look around, there's nothing. And maybe we could even do that thing that you do in horror movies sometimes where, you pan by and like you see what could be something in the shadows, but we don't focus on it. So like maybe you see like a little like, Ewok like clinging on the side of a tree, like looking and watching. And as like we see like a first person shot, like the gun up in frame panning across the tree line, and we just see in shadows like little bear creatures in the trees, like watching them. So if like a blink and you'll miss it type of thing.
Yeah, and that's perfect if they're doing it in the dark under moonlight with like no flashlights because they're trying to stay stealthy. So yeah, so like they're squinting trying to see details, but it's it's a deep forest. Like there's ferns and fronds and bushes and all kinds of shit. So yeah, like it's like this would be that moment when like everybody would get out their VCR remote and try to pause it just in time to be like, see, look, there's an Ewok in the tree right there, Tommy, I told you.
It's like the scene in fucking the original Jedi where the Ula, the Twi'lek dancer in Jabba's palace, there is the briefest second where her titty pops out on the original cut. And if you pause it, you get to see a titty in Star Wars.
For like one frame. Yeah, exactly.
Like one frame of green titty.
Oh, man. So, like, I don't have a lot. Like, I haven't figured out what to do with, like, Waller and the troops yet. Other than, like, yes, there's a lot of opportunity for, like, it's super quiet. It's super creepy. But like when we do cut back to like Chance and Jansen, that kind of rhymes. Chance and Jansen, it's like there has to be this conflict of like Chance is trying to like come on man, let's get the fuck out of here, like let's go, and Jansen's like I don't want to go, boss, I don't want to go, like don't make me, man, there's something out there, there's something in those trees, and Chance. And what I'm picturing is, you just see, and Chance is just like you're crazy. Like we're in a war. People die. Trust me, there's nothing in those. And then his like fucking head explodes all over Jansen. Like blood goes everywhere because, one of these Ewoks in the trees just like threw a spear like right through his head and like, and his face burst all over Jansen, who's now covered in his blood. Something like that.
Let's save that because I got an idea that I really want to do with those two. But I love the idea of the head exploding. So let's do that with one of the troopers. So let's have like they're getting closer to the shield generator. It's very clear that something is out there, and they're like we could have Merrick kind of freaking out still. Riggs trying to keep him to keep his shit together. Just be like, come on, soldier, like get it together. And Waller just be like, keep it down. Like we don't want to be caught. Have them getting like they're getting close to the shield generator, and have we see Waller get there. Maybe the door is still blown open, like it's still open because when the rebels broke in. So have that have her get to the door. She kind of peeks in and maybe she shines a light momentarily, just like shines a light in and looks, there's nothing in there, and then have her turn and, to kind of like wave the troopers over. And then as she's like waving them over, like have Merrick like stay, like he's pulling up the rear. He turns and looks at him and just have his fucking head explode. Nice, yes. do exactly what you said, like, and they're just covered with gore, and then you hear like you hear them in the forest, but you can't see them. So now. Yes. Do they run out into the forest, or do they run for cover in the fucking dead end that is the shield generator and try to complete their mission, knowing there's enemy all around them? Like one of their fellows just got his fucking head eviscerated. So it's like, what do you do? So I would think that they would run inside, like guns on the doorway, trying to like bottleneck it, and have like maybe Jansen gets on her comm. And it's like, Chance, or not Chance, sorry, Waller gets on her comm and be like, Jansen, we need backup. We're pinned down. And then have like, no response. Cut over. We see the comm laying in the cave and both bikes are gone.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Like they just fucking, they just abandoned them. So like, yeah, we don't know what happened to them yet. So we're gonna see in a moment. But so we got them. Maybe Riggs and Waller are like watching the door, waiting, and we got Santera's like trying to like operate the comm, like he's trying to get it back up and running. So we got this tense moment. Now we cut over to Chance and Jansen, and we just see them speeding through the forest, like you had said. Where it's like in the dark, so it's like, and we see shit rustling all around him, and we could have Jansen getting more and more and more scared. Just like, what are we gonna do? They're all around us, and have Chance just be like, keep it together, we got to get out of here. Like they're flying around, and then let's have them get captured.
Okay.
Like, I want to have the Ewoks capture some people just to see how fucking brutal they can be. So. Like, I don't know if we want to do something like, they have some kind of trap set up where it like hits the speeder bike and flips them over so they're going to get really injured, or if we want to have some kind of like net that like grapples them and they go like flying into a tree or something, like break an arm or something where it's like the Ewoks are able to stop them on the speeders. I don't want to kill anyone, so that my initial thought was like, let's put a fucking like a garrote across, or not a garrote, but a line across the trees and have someone get killed. But I'm like, I want to save the death.
Yeah, no, I think the type of like net that they use to catch the heroes in the Return of the Jedi would work if we see the Chance and Jansen on the speeder bikes, and they're kind of like weaving through the trees, and then they see like a big opening, like you see Chance like point at it like, come on, we're going that way, like the big opening between the two trees, and there's like nothing beyond, like there's a little, I don't know, pond or something, but it's just like a clear escape route, and then you see this net fly up like a spider web in between the two trees, like they had it rigged to like go up really fast, and then both bikes just ram right into the net. Maybe one of them like gets all smashed up, and maybe Chance gets hurt from that, but maybe Jansen bails at like the last second just enough where the net caught the speeder bike and it stayed functional, but then Jansen wasn't like crushed by it the way that Chance isn't going to die here, but he's going to get at least partially crushed by his own bike as it smashes into the net, right?
Oh, dude. So yeah, so just like you said, like like we should have Chance, because he's again being the officer in charge at the moment. He's leading the charge. Jansen's bringing up the rear, so he gets caught. Just like you said, he gets injured. We have Jansen just jump off of his bike last minute. We should have the speeder crash into one of the trees in a big ball of fire, and just briefly, have Jansen like looking around like looking around, and we just see like the freaking Ewoks all around, like in the trees, in the bushes, all just like staring at him, and then it goes dark again.
Oh yeah, like all of their eyes and their fangs like reflecting in the firelight from the speeder that just blew up. Yeah. It's just like, oh shit.
And have it go dark, and you just hear like them, and he's just like like starts screaming, and then we cut back to the others at the shield generator.
Nice. Yeah. Okay. So again, I'm not sure what's going on at the shield generator just yet. I haven't quite figured out like, oh, here's the next step. But I keep picturing like these fun sequences where like, so at some point we'll do something with Waller and the crew, like, jump in and kind of like, let's move the piece to the next, the next stage. But I want to have Waller be like, wait, shh, you guys hear that? Like, do you hear that? And then it's like they can hear one of the speeder bike noise, and they're like, it's got to be Chance and Jansen coming to get us. Like, they got our comm. And like one of them like goes outside or looks out a window or something. And I want to have them see or hear the speeder bike coming, like you. And then you just hear like, and it's like there's a fucking Ewok like on the speeder who's just like racing past them.
Dude, fuck yes. Okay, so that is going to be in here. So here's what I'm thinking for the shield generator scene. So we have Waller and Waller and Riggs. Sorry, they're at the door, kind of like manning it, like they got guns ready. Santeras is trying to like work the comms. Merrick unfortunately had his head fucking exploded by the Ewoks. So they're like, how's it coming, Santeras? And he's like, I'm trying to get it working. And maybe he gets through. Like he gets through to somebody. He's like, Mayday, we're trapped on Endor. And we could have like an officer respond, basically saying like the Empire has fallen, like, it's every man for himself. Something along those lines, like, you're on your own, soldier, Godspeed, kind of like
that's it.
There's no help coming. And have like, Santeras just kind of like drop back into the seat staring blankly like, oh my God, we're really alone, just kind of like, and have Waller be like, what's going on? What's the situation? And be like, there's nobody out there. There's nobody coming. We're on our own. We're all going to fucking die. Like, and he just starts freaking out, and have, Riggs be like, calm the fuck down. Like they're, yelling back and forth. And then to your point, we have the speeder, and have Waller be like, they're on their way. Jansen and Chance, they heard us. And then we just see the Ewok go flying by. They're like, what the hell is that? And then have like Ewoks start rushing toward the door, like spears and fucking, the bolo slings and all that, just, screeching and running toward him, and have them just start like shooting at these little fucking teddy bear monsters as they're like rushing them. Like, what do? You're trapped. You got a bottleneck, but you only got so many shots. eventually you're going to get overwhelmed.
And it definitely should. We should have, probably Santaris like get taken down here. I think we need to take out another one, and I think, yeah, we've seen a couple of interesting deaths, but just having him get swarmed like it's a bunch of like the critters or something,
right?
Well,
and that's the thing. Like it should be, maybe because again we see that the Ewoks, they will capture their prey because they're gonna make it last. They're gonna be like, hey, we're gonna eat this one. We'll save you for later. That type of thing. Like, so have them, swarming in and have Santaris freaking out. Maybe he tries to run out, or maybe they break in and they get Jansen and Riggs, like they overpower him and they tie him up or whatever, and Santaris is still in the comm station, and just like open the door and just be like, fuck you, die, like he's just freaking out. And Jansen and Riggs watch as he's swarmed by these fucking little teddy bears, and they just start biting and stabbing at him, and we just see like just a furry tidal wave of Ewoks like pulling this guy to the ground as like blood spurts up between their bites and stabs.
Nice. Yeah. So, sorry, did you say Jansen or should it be Waller and Riggs?
Right? Or I'm sorry, Waller. Yeah, I keep saying Jansen. Waller.
I just want to keep things straight. Yeah. Okay. So let's have Santaris go down. And maybe even though like Waller was so big on like no lights, no sound, maybe this is the moment when she breaks her own rule because she can hear Santaris is screaming or crying or whatever, and maybe she like pulls out her little pen light and she cups it under her hand just enough to like shine it to like, Santaris, like, you okay? And then she shines the light and you see all of these Ewoks just like they flick their heads at her and it's like just blood all over their faces. Like they were eating him. Like they've all got like the one's got like his forearm and the one's got a finger, and there's like a little baby who's like chewing on like like it's like a toe or something.
Oh God, yeah.
And then just see Waller Waller just like shocked for a second, and Riggs grabs her and is like, let's go, like and then they're gonna like run back out in the woods because we got to get them away from the shield generator because it's a dead end for them, but also like we want to get them back out into like the killing fields.
Right. Okay, yeah, so they don't get tied up. Let's just have them like they're maybe there's, do we want to have another entrance? I'm trying to picture the logistics of this, because if Waller and Riggs were monitoring the door and Santaris was like in the comm room, and then he finds out what's that they're fucked, and then he kind of loses his shit, and the Ewoks flood in, would they take out Waller and Riggs, or would like Riggs and Waller like rush out into the night while they're like running in?
Yeah. Okay. I feel like I definitely think we should probably have them get captured, or at least one of them, just like it seems like Jansen probably is at this point, because I think we kind of want to. I think it would be fun to see like the Ewok, maybe the Ewok village is like a horror show or something.
Oh, yeah.
Like, right. So I think that they should get out somehow. And I just think it would be more interesting from like an action perspective if, Waller and Riggs, like, there was like a hatch or something and they were able to get out, like as the Ewoks are chasing them, and like they run out into the woods, and they think that they're like home free. They're like, let's get to that speeder that went by, like, go that way. Like, we'll see if we can get the speeder bike, but they're not going to make it far. Like, they're still going to get captured, but like we'll give them this last chance of like false hope to get out of the base. But they actually just ran right back into like the worst place they could be, again out in the woods where all the Ewoks are. So they're gonna run into a trap, and maybe we could have Riggs get killed or hurt here too. Like it's just another opportunity for like a cool, maybe not a death, but at least a cool injury scene. Like, yeah, maybe they run through a razor wire, or they run into like, or what if while they're running, one of them like steps on like a carpet of fake leaves and drops into like a pit full of like sharpened spears, like a spike pit.
What is it, the Ponji sticks or whatever they're called? Yeah. Okay, yeah. So here's what I'm picturing. So let me see if we're on the same page. So we have Waller and Riggs, manning the door. The Ewoks start rushing in. They're fighting back. Let's have the Ewoks, grab them, net them or whatever, and have like, this is where Santaris comes out of the comm room, guns blazing, just like, fuck you, die, like he's freaking out, and they swarm him. So they kind of like leave Waller and Riggs where they think are captured, they're netted. Maybe like maybe Riggs like took an arrow to the knee or something, you know, like he got shot from
Mhm.
when the Ewoks were rushing, and so he's injured but not down for the count. So while, you know, like you said, Waller pulls a little light and she looks up and sees the Ewoks eating the dude. What if she, you know, again, she's got that cybernetic arm. She like fucking rips the net and like
There you go.
grabs it off of Riggs, and she's like, "We gotta move now! Like, get to that speeder that we saw." So they take off. They leave because Santaris is dead. So they leave him for dead and
Mhm.
take off. So I love the idea of the like spike pit. So maybe like they see the overturned speeder, you know, several yards up the path. So they start making their way up there, and like we can hear the Ewoks behind them, like "Ah, rah, rah, rah," like they're all coming, you know, and have Riggs turn. He's shooting, you know, he like is running along, not watching where he's going, and to your point, he trips, lands in the thing, and just gets impaled.
Yeah. And he shouldn't die right away though. He should just
Oh no.
he's just like struggling, like, you know, but he's struggling to like make a noise while he's like bleeding out of his mouth because like lungs are punctured, you know. But I again, we mentioned that speeder bike, and all I could think was it would be funny if one of them, and I guess Waller is the one who's alive for this, or not impaled, you know, like runs up to where the speeder bike is, and there's the little Ewok who like stole it, who, you know, crashed into something, and should have, I think Waller should like see the Ewok and just be real careful, like tiptoeing around. But it's like laying on the ground, but like she's kind of tiptoeing around it. She goes to check out the bike, and the bike is fucked up. So she's like, you know, damn it, like that won't work. And then she sees the little Ewok. She's like, you little bastard, and she just starts kicking like the dead Ewok, like fuck you, you little bitch, right? Like,
Yes.
which would be like a really cool cathartic moment, but it's also the wrong thing to do because, you know, again, all in the woods around here, there's more Ewoks, and they just saw her, like, you know, kick their fallen comrade. So, you know, she should do that, and then we should just see, like, I'm sure you've been camping and you're sitting around the campfire and you look up and you're just like, I don't remember being completely surrounded by raccoons, but there they all are, you know. And that's kind of what I'm thinking. Like, she's gonna look up from kicking the body to just be surrounded by Ewoks, you know, and just like, oh shit. And
Right.
you know, and we should cut from there. We should cut to, you know, she's being maybe she's being like walked through the forest, but like hung on a pole like Han Solo and Luke Skywalker were, like being carried back to, you know, somewhere. Hell, maybe the Ewoks who have her are even like, they're singing their little, you know, victory song, like, haha, we got the bitch, you know.
they're singing their yub happiness, you know.
Yes.
So yeah, no, I love that. So they capture her, like we do the cutaway. We see her being led to the Ewok village, where we see like torches. It's well lit at the Ewok village. You know, we saw that in Jedi. So we see the village, maybe not the main village, but one of them, you know, because obviously the Ewoks are going to be all over the Forest Moon. So they get back there, and we see that Chance and Jansen are tied up and in cages. You know, so we see that that's what happened to them. She gets thrown in the cage with, you know, with Chance, you know, maybe, and Jansen's in the other cage. He's freaking out. He's terrified. And have her just be like, what the fuck is going on? Like, where were you guys? And have Chance just like not responding, like being a total dick to her. And then have like the chief of the Ewoks, like, you know, he points at Jansen and like calls out to a couple other Ewoks, and they like head over to the cage. You know, they open up the cage and they drag him out. Now, keep in mind, he's all tied up, so he can't do nothing. They drag him out and bring him over. I'm picturing like, not really like an altar, but kind of like an altar. Like drag him over there and tie him up to it, and then have the chief like pointing, and have one of the Ewoks like stretch one of his arms out and have another one with a stone axe just start hacking at his shoulder. Yep. Just like literally dismembering him alive. Then be like I'm picturing Green Inferno, like where they just fucking cut this guy apart, and have him just like screaming bloody murder, and have Chance and Waller just having to watch as they're literally dismembering one of their comrades alive.
Yes. Yeah.
Like, how fucking horrific would that be, you know?
Yeah. Oh man, and of course, and now this is when Chance is gonna finally speak up, and now he wants to work with Waller, and he's gonna be like, okay, like when I gave the signal, and
Yeah,
it's like, oh great, now you have a plan, you fucking idiot, like you could have been our backup before, but you had to like go and run off, and now we're both captured, and like now you want to be in charge, like it would just be a funny moment. Yeah, so again, I'm at the point where it's like I don't. I can think of a couple of really cool, like, death scenes or like fun things to do. I'm not sure exactly where to go next. I kind of feel like, Waller is shaping up to be our final girl, whether, she survives or not, like we'll see. But, to be honest, the only, other than just like a big battle and a big escape and all of this, the only other scene I can really picture in my head very clearly is you mentioned that Waller has this cybernetic arm, and I don't know if you had any like specific intention other than like it's a cool thing and it gives her a chance to like get Chance out of that ATST from earlier, but like again the Ewoks are eating them, like it's food. I feel like there's got to be a scene where one of the Ewoks goes to like eat her arm and just like bites into like the metal and like breaks its teeth, and she can do like choke on this bitch, and like like they weren't expecting a bionic arm, but like that's going to be her chance to get out or to get away.
Yeah, no, I like that. I didn't have a plan for that. I just thought it would be like a cool, Star Warsy type thing to be like, hey, yeah, this one person has a bionic arm, and it would also kind of give us a reason for her to do strong things like rip through the fucking netting and rip the ATST hatch open, and just kind of led to cool visuals. So yeah, I love that idea of having the Ewok go to bite her and having to break its teeth. So what we should do is have like maybe Chance isn't even talking to her. Maybe he's just like he's hit that point where he's accepted, death, and he knows he fucked up. There's nothing he can do, and he's just like quietly not saying a damn thing. And she's like freaking out. They're watching, Jansen get dismembered, and maybe after they take him apart and pull his pieces to go cook on the fire, they're like, all right, next, and they go to get Waller. And then we could have the whole moment of like the Ewok bite down on the arm and have it be like the shattered teeth, and maybe she can fucking knock him, with the arm and run. So she's like running through the fucking Ewok village while they're chasing after, and Chance is like, no, don't leave me. What are you doing?
Yes,
like,
yes.
So yeah, like, because I feel like we're kind of like leading toward the final act here. I think this should be kind of like the end of the movie, where we have like the third act of her escaping the horror show that is the Ewok village.
Yeah, and I don't think we really have any purpose for Chance anymore either. I think seeing Jansen get like mutilated and dismembered was like pretty awesome, and it gives us a chance to have Chance try to turncoat again, and like okay, well now we can team up, and she's not going to help him,
No.
So yeah, when the Ewok next comes for like, all right, who's the next victim to like take to the slaughter altar to get ready to feed the young, they come in, and maybe Chance is just kind of doing that thing where he's kind of like tilting his head like, huh take her.
He's like leaning toward the back of the cage, kind of like putting her in front of him. Like,
yeah. Exactly. Yeah, and then but they do. Maybe that's what it is they pick her, and they're like, okay, and then she's struggling a little bit, and the one Ewok goes to like to bite her, thinking that he's just gonna like either calm her down or freak her out. Like, fine, you don't want to go to the altar, I'll take your arm off right here. It doesn't work. The Ewok breaks his teeth and freaks out. Let's go, and that's her chance to like stand up, use her arm to swipe a couple of them down. Maybe she grabs a spear from one of them and fucking takes off, and now maybe she just like leaps out of the tree, like it's the treehouse cave. She just fucking leaps into the darkness. Just anything's better than up here,
Like the fucking scene in Ravenous where where Guy Pearce jumps off the cliff.
Yeah, just go for it. Like hell, even if she breaks a leg, it's like anything is a fighting chance, right? So she just goes and leaps, and you see her just fall into the darkness of the trees, and of course some of the Ewoks are going to go after. You're going to hear the horn sound, like like go get her, and then then the Ewoks that were in the cage, maybe Chance gets up and he's trying to like escape. Maybe he sneaks up behind one of them and like grabs a stone knife and starts swinging it, and the other Ewoks, they turn, and maybe one of them just like pulls a leather strap and the bottom of the cage opens up, and you just hear oh, and he just falls.
Dude, okay, hold on. Let's set this up. So we do exactly what you said, where she gets taken out, and she's struggling. He does the teeth scene where he bites, teeth shatter. He's freaking out, like maybe he's dancing back and forth, like holding his little fingers over his broken teeth, just freaking. And she grabs him with her cybernetic arm, like grabs the cuff of his little collar, and swings him like a fucking battering ram into the other Ewoks. And one of the Ewoks gets knocked up against the cage, this is where Chance could be like trying to like grab his little stone knife off of him and use it to like cut the ropes binding him, and have like you said, Waller, she grabs a spear and just starts fucking running, and she's bashing Ewoks and trying to like just every turn she makes, there's like 100 Ewoks coming at her. So it's just like, where do I go? We could even do like a POV shot of her running and just Ewoks flooding toward the camera. Just like, teeth gnashing, spears raised, like they want to take her out. And Chance is freaking out, like, where are you going? Don't leave me. And then we could have like the chief do what you said, like he pulls the fucking rope and have Chance just drop into the darkness, like, ah.
Yeah, and like after at some point later on, like after Waller or jumps off too, and she's kind of like on ground level trying to escape. Maybe she comes across Chance's body, and it's like underneath the cage there was like this big pit, and it's like full of like sharp rocks or whatever, or it would be a really funny like visual. I don't know if they could do it like the special effects budget, but like what if it was like this big giant geode where that had been opened up? You know what I mean? So it's like a big bowl of like sharp crystals. Right?
Oh shit!
Just because it would be like a brutal moment to come across. Like they purposely built this cage over the top of this like this like knife rock that they dropped the dude on. So Waller comes across it and he's just like impaled on like crystals and there's like blood splattered everywhere. It would just be fun.
Dude, I love that visual. I absolutely love it. So yeah, and plus it would kind of make sense because they like shiny things. So if they have these shiny crystals, it would be some kind of like ooh, this is a good sacrificial spot type of thing.
Yeah.
So yeah, but I'm picturing like Waller's escape. She's running across those rope bridges. The Ewoks are throwing spears at her. They're shooting arrows. She's knocking Ewoks into the darkness, and then she's gonna get to like one of those centralized platforms again, and have Ewoks bearing down on her on all sides, and have her just like looking around and see the smallest of opening between a couple of Ewoks, and she just fucking runs and leaps into the darkness. Like, and I love that visual. So like, we see the brightly lit trees, and then the darkness below, and she just leaps in like fucking full on leap of faith, goes into the darkness, and definitely going to injure herself because she's high up in the fucking trees. Maybe she takes the brunt of the force on her arm, and maybe it like, it's sparking and like part of it is hanging down. Like maybe she broke it. So she's like limping through the woods, like trying to get away. And yet, to your point, we see Chance laying on the fucking impaled Geo, still alive, going like, "Help me!" and have her just look at him, just like, I don't know, I can't think of a witty, one-liner, but maybe she just like, spits and spits away from him, just like, piece of trash, or it's just something along those lines, of like walking away, like she's injured as all hell. There's nowhere to go. What are you going to do? How are you going to escape this? Yeah. You hear the Ewoks in the darkness. I'm sorry. Did you have something?
Yeah, I'm sorry, real quick. You said like, help me. And of course I immediately thought of like fucking Emil from RoboCop, who I know we bring him up a lot, but like that would be a really cool actor too. The actor who plays Emil, whose name is escaping me and the internet is not helping me at the moment. Paul McCrane. Yeah, that would be cause if you picture that character and then you picture the way that we've described Chance as being this kind of like, petty guy who's obsessed with like, his little bit of authority, already, and especially if you know that character from like the way he is on ER back in the day, like he would be the perfect actor to cast in that role. But anyway, okay, back to Waller.
You know what I almost wish we could have done, but I know it doesn't make sense, is having the Ewoks, eat him and have him just be like the choke on him, the Day of the Dead moment. But, I do like the idea of him just laying there kind of almost off camera, like not centralized shot, like have Waller limping, bloody, arms sparking, limping through the woods, and then you just hear the "help me," have her look over and see him all impaled, like his eyes fucking hanging out on his cheek. There's a piece of geode sticking through his face. He's just like, ah.
Yes.
Have her keep walking away, and as you hear the Ewoks bearing down on her, you hear all that, and then lights should shine on her, like several lights, and we could see rebels, and they take her hostage. So
Nice.
I kind of like the idea of having you think she's gonna be saved. Oh fuck, it's the enemy.
Yeah, you see all these flashlights, and then these troops and the guns, and you're like, halt, and maybe they're like Imperial scum, to just flip that name back around, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, stay where you are, and just immediately like, oh, here comes the cavalry, and it's like, but we've been following Waller, the so-called bad guy, for an hour and a half of this movie, just for her to fall into the enemy hands, which hey, the rebels are supposed to be the good guys. So yeah, I love the way we turn the tables on that.
Oh, absolutely. And then so we should I feel like this should be like our ending moment, where we have her brought back to maybe she's on a ship, maybe she's back at the whatever rebel compound they've set up on Endor, and we could have I'm picturing a Mon Mothma type officer. So somebody that's very regal looking, and then you have the rebel troops with their fucking their camouflage gear and their guns all standing around, and have her be maybe asking questions like, how many Imperials are left on the Forest Moon, where is who are you answering to, basically grilling her, and have Waller just kind of be laughing, be like, there's no one left, we're all dead, she's just kind of losing it at this point, and have this rebel leader kind of laugh and be like, we could have wasted the resources on hunting every one of you down, but we decided to let the natives of the Forest Moon do it for us. The Ewoks have an appetite for Imperials. It's kind of almost joyful about the fact that they knew they were being tortured and eaten. So it's kind of gives a little dark side to the rebels.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, to add just a little bit more flavor to that, I love that conversation. Yeah, you could have, when this this rebel officer type is grilling Waller about how many are you and how many outposts do you have and blah blah blah, and maybe Waller could just be like, I don't know, there were only 7 of us and that's all I know. Everyone else I saw was dead, but even if there were more, it wouldn't matter. They'd all be dead by now anyway with those monsters in the woods. I can't believe you fought side by side with those beasts. You're evil, whatever. She's kind of turning, and then that's when the officer's like, ah, yes, the Ewoks. They have proven to be, quite the helpful, partners in this battle. And yeah, we, it would have used up so many of our resources to clean up all of the Imperial, outposts and and hidey holes all over the moon, but we have a bigger fish to fry when we can just let the Ewoks, clean up their own house, or whatever the words are. And it's oh shit, they knew what was going on, and they know that everyone's dead. Hell, this rebel officer type was probably pretty surprised to find wait, an Imperial lived through the night? Impossible.
Exactly. And it almost kind of gives the question of were the rebels are these war crimes? Are they okay with this? Kind of it gives that dark side to the rebels, which we've seen in some of the expanded Star Wars stuff several times. Because again, this is they had to resort to guerrilla warfare. They were fighting a giant foe, so of course they're going to have to use whatever tactics they have. So again, it just makes sense. But I kind of love the idea of seeing it from the opposition's point of view of these are monsters, that type of thing. But it's hey, you guys were the fucking Galactic Empire, so.
Yeah. Now, I don't know if you had a fate in mind for Waller, but we can do like a choose your own adventure or whatever, but like hear me out. So on the ending that I'm thinking of here is yeah. After all of this, where the rebel officer is grilling Waller and kind of revealing their sort of like sadistic secret that they were just letting the Ewoks do what the Ewoks do. And what if we cut to like outside and there's like a big crowd of the rebels, they're all standing and watching the evil Imperial soldier get walked out, and like and Waller's like blindfolded and gagged, and they fucking walk her up onto like the gallows, and this rebel officer gives a speech about like and what is it like and thus to all tyrants, kind of a speech of like we've let the evil of the Empire, survive in the galaxy too long. The good and forthright rebellion has, won. And now evil shall be punished. And they fucking put the noose around her neck, and like everybody cheers as they fucking, they pull the lever, the trapdoor opens, and there goes Waller, like hung as an Imperial like enemy combatant in front of all of these rebels who were supposed to be the good guys. After she did all that to survive, but it comes to nothing.
Oh, dude, I love it. Because the ending I had, honestly, is I wanted to have Waller kind of have one last little like fuck you, and either like maybe in her cybernetic arm, like she has some almost like the Predator, the fuck you button.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
She has maybe like she's sitting there and just like I knew you people were scum, or I knew I knew you rebels didn't give a fuck about anything, and like have her just kind of like pull part of her arm and have it like start ticking down, and have her just be like, save the Empire, and just have it fucking explode.
Like, yes. Oh, I love that. Oh shit, I love that too. Oh fuck, we gotta find a way to do both. Oh, I know how we do it. Yes, we do the same thing. Let's do. Oh, I fucking love that. I love that. Like, damn the man, save the Empire.
Fucking Empire Records.
So here's what we do: is we have the rebel officer like lead Waller out of wherever they were interrogating her, like again in front of this crowd, and you see this, there's like this gallows up there, and they lead her up, and it's fucking Chance, who survived like falling on the geode, and because the rebels showed up right to grab Waller, and of course the Ewoks would be like, oh, we weren't doing nothing, nah, he's fine, that guy, he fell and so like what if they arrested Chance, like again he's an enemy combatant, and even though he was real messed up, he survived, and what if Chance is the one that they string up and hang, like officer first, and while everyone's watching this, like again fuck, the dude like survived all that only to be like hung for as an enemy in front of everybody. And this is when we see Waller be like, oh, I ain't going out like that, and she uses her bionic arm to like break free of the shackle or whatever she's got, and makes a run for it. Or again, maybe she has it built in and she just needed to have her other arm free for like this is the Hail Mary feature that she's got built into her arm, and so she can be like and all of you rebel scum can go to hell, like save the Empire.
Dude, okay. This is how I'm picturing it. Like, do everything you were saying with, the whole lead up to the gallows and all that, and have them give that big flowery speech about how, the Empire is evil, yada yada yada. We do all that, but Waller's seen all this shit, but we've seen her multiple times working on her hand. Like there's something in there. So like, like maybe that's what she was making sure was safe the entire time, was her little fuck you button. So yeah, we do the thing where she's about to get hung, and she doesn't break free. She knows she's going to die because she's going to commit suicide. So it's like, she's just kind of like, she listens to their whole speech, listens to the whole thing with Chance and all that. And just kind of like, are there like any last words, Imperial scum or Imperial dog or whatever, just be like, yeah, save the Empire, just have her like set the bomb off, yes, and have rebels try to like get out, but they can't. It fucking explodes all around them, and then and play the Star Wars ending music.
Yes, I love that. Yeah, like they get so far as to like put the noose around her neck, and then she's just like, save the Empire. Yeah, and I love that too, because it really flips things around. Like, wait, the Empire was bad. Like, what just happened? Like, because you'd all be like, fuck yeah, Waller, show them rebel bitches. Wait, hang on a second, I'm conflicted.
Yeah, exactly. And I love that, because the whole time we're rooting for these guys, but they're the bad guys,
Yeah. Exactly. And
So
like
much fun.
I know they didn't really do any like, post credit scenes in like old Star Wars movies, but like it would be so fun if after, we play the, the Star Wars music into the credits and everything's happy and you're left sitting in the theater going like, I don't know how I feel about this,
Right.
and then as the credits roll all the way through, then you get to the end and then you just start hearing like yep, like you start hearing like the Ewok dancing and like the screen goes from black and it scans back in and you see the Ewok village and they're having their own big party and they're just eating everybody. They got rebels, they got Imperials, like everybody's on the menu because at the end of the day, they didn't care. They were just hungry.
and it's their home planet. Everyone else is just coming there, so they're just like, fuck you. This is our
whatever,
turf. I love it.
C-3PO was their god. He left. They don't care.
God abandoned them. They don't.
Yes. Yes.
Oh,
man,
God.
this was so much fun. That went way better than I expected, to be honest with you.
Yeah, that was fun.
Really fun.
And that's the thing. Like, we never played in the Star Wars universe. We've just complained about it.
Yes, quite a bit.
Exactly.
But yeah, no, you're right. I didn't really think about that. We've gone and played in the sandboxes of a lot of 80s and 90s properties, but yeah, Star Wars it's a big one. It was kind of like when we finally went to like Kevin Smith's, Viewist universe. It took us, 3 seasons before we were like, all right, let's do this. Like, we've had 2 seasons to, to kind of hone our chops to play in that playground because has a very distinct voice. And I think the same thing is true here. Like, I never really expected to play in the world of Star Wars because, I mean, there's a lot of it, but it's also like kind of like the holy texts,
Right.
But yeah, this was a lot of fun.
And plus, like when we first started this, it was the whole idea was to improv and improve. So it's like, and like, yeah, say what you will about the sequels. I obviously had a lot to say about them, but it's like overall, I love Star Wars as a whole. So like, there's not a whole lot I would want to change, but adding something fun to the mythos, like a little side story, that was really cool.
Yeah, absolutely. And when we came up with this whole idea of like, you were like, hey, I want to do space Vietnam with Ewoks. I'm like, okay. It's like, that sounds like fun. Sure. But we also decided to put it on the schedule this week because it wasn't a lot of homework. We both had a lot of shit going on. And it was like, look, maybe I'll have to watch like most of Return of the Jedi, not even the whole movie, because you can skip the whole thing with Jabba and Tatooine at the beginning. It has nothing to do with the Ewoks, So sorry, this is an easy homework one, but yeah, I basically came into this thinking like, yeah, I got the general concept. Ewoks are scary. They're in the woods. Like I don't know. Like this is a total improv for me, at least off the top of our heads, because I literally was just like, yeah, this is a good concept. I reminded myself a little bit about what the Ewoks do and how they fight, and okay, that's it. Let's go. Like no preparation needed. And I don't know. I was kind of hoping for the best, but I'm glad that you came to the table with a couple of ideas. Otherwise, I would have been like woefully unprepared.
I couldn't stop thinking about it last night. I was like, oh man, there's so many ways this could go. There's so many cool opportunities for vicious Ewok murder.
Vicious Ewok murder. See, if this were Count Creepyhead Saturday Morning Monster Mash, that would be the title of the episode.
Right? All I know is I kept thinking about stuff like Bone Tomahawk, Green Inferno, Tooth and Nail. I'm like, we got to have somebody get dismembered. It's got to happen.
Yeah, and I was very much thinking things like you mentioned before, like Platoon, like Vietnam era movies where it's like a lot of like brutal gunfire and like in your face blood and gore. I wasn't really thinking of it as kind of like a horror movie, like a slasher movie, horror movie, but that's definitely where it led to, especially when we decided to go directly into like Night Falls that first night, and it's like, well, shit, man, yeah, there's a bunch of like native animals in the woods. Of course, that's going to be creepy as hell. Yeah, so it definitely lent itself to horror movie vibes for sure. So yeah, dude, this was really good. I'm glad it worked out. All right, man, we did it. Well, we did a Star Wars. Yeah.
Yay, we did it. We didn't do the text crawl, which I'm surprised neither one of us thought to do that ahead of time. I was like, I realized as we were talking, I'm like, oh fuck, I never wrote anything down for a text crawl. Shit, we didn't talk about that.
I know. like now that we've done this story, I could write it in retrospect. But yeah, you're right. Especially since I always write like, funny intros for the episode. So it's like I totally could have done, a text crawl as like one of the intros, and that would have been a funny way to kick off the episode. But yeah, I went for the Princess Bride quote instead,
which was fucking hilarious.
But
that was awesome. But yeah, we got to wrap this one up. Unfortunately, I got to work.
Oh yeah, I gotta go feed my dogs and make some dinner. So while we go do real life things, the rest of you should go check us out online at raisedbyrentals.com and visit us on the socials at Raised by Rentals. Do the exact same thing for the Rad Pantheon, radpantheon.com, and on the socials. We are a super team of podcasters, artists, musicians, all sorts of creative people helping to spread the word about rad stuff. So if you like this show, there's a really strong chance you're going to like one or more of our Rad Pantheon teammates at radpantheon.com. Mike, you got anything going on?
Just the usual. We have Boogeyman's Closet. I'm not sure when this episode will come out, but on the docket right now, we have Tourist Trap is coming up very soon, followed closely by 3 from Hell. And then, of course, Count Creepyhead Saturday Morning Monster Mash, where 3 grown man children talk about toys sometimes, but mostly pop culture and Muppets.
Yes, absolutely. That's definitely a good time. Definitely a good time. Check that one out. Check out all the other podcasts of the Rad Pantheon. I, for one, tend to get really behind on audiobooks because there's always like good podcasts to listen to. So
Same.
It's like I work from home. I don't have the commute anymore, so I have to like choose more than I used to when I do get a chance to listen. But anyway, everyone, go tune in, and thanks once again for tuning into this podcast, the Raised by Rentals program. If you had fun with us, as always, visit us on those socials, drop us a line, leave a comment, leave a podcast rating. Let us know what you think we should improve next time. And with that, I'm Josh.
I'm Mike.
And we have to return some videotapes.
Yum, yum.
Damn the man! Save the Empire!